Welcome to my tool graveyard, where all used up and useless tools go to die. Now, there are a couple of tools in here I can see just from here that are useful, and we'll keep those. Some of them are used maybe once every 5 years. They're going to go in the basement. Some of them will never be used because they're crap, and those will go in the trash. Before we get too crazy, though, I'd like to talk about the 3 or 4, maybe 5 tools that I actually like, and it'll only take a minute. This is my Dynaking Barracuda. My wife got it for me about 15 years ago for my birthday. I never would have bought this vise myself. I don't really care about the rotary feature. To me, it's one of the least important features a vise can possibly have. But I've got it, and I use it, but not in the way you might think. I just use it to inspect the backside of the fly. It's the only thing I really do with the rotary. But I do love the vise. It's solid as a rock. Holds the hook like crazy. It's ultra expensive. If you have between $100 and $200 and want to buy a vise, I would go with a Regal medallion. If you have $250 to spend, I would get a Dynaking Kingfisher. I've tied on that vise, really like it, and gave it to a friend's grandson. And kind of wish I hadn't, but anyway, he's enjoying it, so that's great. Let's see. If you want to spend around $100, it's pretty much the Renzetti Traveler. That's about it. Less than 100 is going to be less than great. I had a Griffin at one point in time that I kind of liked. It was very fiddly, though, but I used it for a number of years, and it held the hook, which is basically all it has to do. These are Dr. Slick razor scissors, the only scissors I like, the only scissors I use, and that was easy. Here are a half a dozen bobbins that I use. Don't worry, I've got more. But honestly, I just like the cheapy Griffin or Dr. Slick. I don't even know what you call them. Just a basic bobbin with a ceramic tube is what I use. I like the right bobbin that's in the middle of the picture. That's fine. And there are other bobbins I like as well that are more exotic. But, the ones I use all the time are the simple ones. So take that for what it's worth. Here's my ProLight tying light. I really like this thing. It's LED, runs cool, and brings out the contrast in things. At my advanced age, I need all the help I can get, just with basic seeing. And this does the trick for me. I can pretty readily look at the twists of thread, for instance, and they sort of get very contrasty. This light is very contrasty, and it's very adjustable in every way, shape, and form. It all comes apart, so it's easy to take to a show, whatever. I like it very much. This is a pair of Revlon tweezers I've had for years. They were a little bit expensive, I know, when I bought them at the time. They've just been great. I don't know about Revlon's now. No idea. I know Don Bastian likes Tweezerman tweezers. So I know he would recommend those. Other than that, I don't have a recommendation other than spend some money and get a good pair. It'll just make your life so much easier. This is a bodkin with a very fine needle that was made for me by Dave Wood of Ravenna, Ohio. Makes some beautiful tools. See how he's inlaid the jungle cock eye there on the handle. All his tools have that. Very cool. This is such a useful little thing. It's got a long needle and a very fine needle, and I really like it. It's absolutely indispensable for gluing heads. I don't like most hackle pliers, and I really don't like these very much. But they're what I use. They're about the right weight for me. I don't like them too heavy. I don't like them too light. Anyway, it's a very subjective thing. Hackle pliers. The thing I don't like about most of them is I seem to get one of two things. Either they're very difficult for me to open, and since I've got carpal tunnel everywhere, that can be a problem. And they're the ones that typically hold the hackle well, or they're very easy to open and they don't hold the hackle. So this pair is kind of a middle ground, and I don't despise them. By now you're probably thinking, well, wow, Eric really doesn't like a lot of tools. Well, we haven't gotten to the tools that I really hate yet. Let's start with the gallows tool. One of the few tools I've been smart enough never to buy. This tool makes no sense to me whatsoever. Depicted here is a Mark Pettigene gallows system. He has a whole system for this. As if the ordinary gallows tool wasn't complicated enough, he's got the gallows system. I'm going to be picking a lot on Mark Pettigene, and rightly so. Especially where tools are concerned, I am not a fan. Now, I love his materials, and he's done a lot of great things for the fly tying community, and he makes some beautifully crafted tools. It's just, who needs a magic tool? You know, the magic is in your fingers. Let's get back to the gallows tool. If I ever have to resort to a gallows tool to tie a parachute, I'm going to hang myself. Instead of taking a half hour out of your day and driving to your fly shop and buying one of these contraptions, take 10 minutes out and learn how to tie a parachute. It's not hard, not at all hard. Okay, let's dive right into the magic tool. I remember when this came out, there was a ton of talk on this forum I was on online about the magic tool, and Kim Bowles was demoing it, and everybody was very excited. And I took one look at this thing, and I said, man, it looks like some bulldog paper clips, and I know those can be useful under certain circumstances, but I'm pretty sure I don't want this tool. And about a year later, somebody took just a straw poll wanting to know, of all the people who bought the magic tool, was there anyone still using it? And the answer was no. They were pretty much in attics and on shelves gathering dust. Now, buying the magic tool might be a little bit of a mistake, but you're going to really compound it if you get the stacker. The only thing a stacker needs to do, a hair stacker, is even the tips of whatever hair you're stacking. Well, guess what? The stacker attachment, which is like another $35, doesn't even the tips. That's the only thing it doesn't do. It's completely worthless. I promise I'll get off Mark's case here in just a second. This next tool of his, I wouldn't mind owning if it wasn't so darn expensive. I can get a fully functional bobbin for what, $17. His is well over 65, I believe. But it has a feature that has two features. It threads itself somehow, which is utterly amazing and would be a boon to all mankind if it wasn't already so easy to thread a bobbin. I can thread a bobbin in 10 seconds with no bobbin threader. It's not hard. You suck on the tube, you suck the thread right up. The other thing you can do is adjust this. Oh, wait a minute. You can adjust every other bobbin made as well. So maybe that's not as fantastic a feature as it first seems. Now, this is a beautifully executed bobbin made of stainless steel. It's gorgeous. And if somebody gave me one, I would take it willingly. But am I going to go out and spend $65 for this thing? Not in a million years. Here's a good one, and we can't blame Mark for this. Rotary hackle pliers. I have a theory about these. If you get these spinning in one direction and then spin your full rotary vise the other direction, in theory, you could create a vortex through which you could travel back in time. Other than that somewhat remote possibility, this tool's usefulness eludes me. Wow. Here's something called the Amazing Glow Bug Dispenser for when an egg pattern is just too complex. What's cool about this worthless tool is not only is it worthless, but you get another free worthless tool along with it, the bobbin threader. I don't know if you're aware, but if you take a piece of monofilament and fold it over, you've got a bobbin threader if you absolutely have to have one. And you just shove the loop down whatever you want to thread. You really don't need a bobbin threader ever. Here's another combo tool, the Dead Fly Hair Packer Half Hitch Tool. First of all, the idea that you're ever putting a half hitch on a fly really bothers me. A half hitch should almost never be put on a fly. Use a whip finish. If you want to pause in the middle of something, do a couple of whip finishes. But regardless, and you can do those by hand, by the way, although I have no problem with a whip finish tool. That's absolutely fine. Go for it with the tool. Tool does a beautiful job. But the hair packer idea, you have fingers. You can pack hair with your fingers. I do it all the time. It's not hard. Now, your fingers can slip and you can jam the hook point into your thumb. It happens. It happens to the best of us. You can live with that, or you can put a little bit of mylar tubing on the point of your hook, as my friend Dick Shaw does, if that really bothers you. In my case, I've jammed the point of a hook into my thumb enough times it doesn't bother me at all. Once I stop the bleeding, it ceases to be a problem. I tried to order a hair packer once, and the good news is they were out of them that day, and that was the end of that. The problem I have with so many of these tools that on the surface seem like they might be helpful in some way is you get enough of these things and they're all over your tying desk and you don't know where anything is, and you just spend forever trying to find your hair packer tool or your God forbid, your half hitch tool. I know what you're saying right now. Eric, you just need a tool organizer. You mean like this one? This is an absolute beauty. My brother got it for me for my birthday. I just loved it. And within a week, it was over on a shelf where I was able to pile lots of other useless crap on it, as you see here. The problem is nowhere near enough room for a serious tire. Not even close. I don't care how big a one of these you get. It's never going to be big enough. I have a restaurant table that I tie on that seats 4 people, and it's not big enough. Here's another one of those combo tools. This is a Dr. Slick jumbo dubbing hook half hitch tool. I've got to confess, and this is my own ignorance, I admit, I have no idea what a dubbing hook is or does. All I can tell you is in almost 60 years of tying now, I've never had to use one, never looked around for one, never wished I had one. But once again, you get 2 worthless tools in one, so how can you go wrong? Wow, here's a good one. They used to call these wastrel bags. They don't anymore. It must be some kind of copyright infringement deal. In any case, God, I could fill one of these up in about an hour of tying, no problem. This is your tying area. This is your manly arena, your domain. Any waste that happens to ensue from your tying goes on the floor. That's where it belongs. I don't know if you've ever seen Mike Schmidt tie at a show. Wonderful streamer tire. By the time Mike is done at the end of the day, it looks like a really bad day at a barber shop where no one has swept up, or maybe a bad week. Mike is a manly man. By now you're probably saying, well, Eric, you've got all this experience and you've never bought any of these useless tools. Au contraire, Pierre, I've bought them all so that you don't have to. Here's a good example. This is a thread caddy of some sort that I bought years ago. The idea is you put your spools of thread and floss and so forth in there. The day I got it home, I put all my spools of thread and floss and tinsel in there and realized that the thing was filled up and I was only half done. And it's really cool. It's wood. It's like a Rolodex for your spools. And you can spin it around. And you can tell by all the dust that's on it. I haven't used it in, 15 years, 20 years, whatever. It's going in the basement. Talking about organizers, here's one. Don't say I'm unorganized. See, this has got a file in it. It's got a nail file in it. It's got some clear cure goo, which isn't made anymore. It has a makeup brush in it, some little paint brushes, some pieces of brass, some fender washers. This whole thing is going down in the basement. Oh, I see the indexer for my vise in there. I think what that does is if you want to spin your vise around and do rotary tying, something I've never understood. I find that my hand can go around the hook beautifully. I really don't need to spin the entire vise to accomplish that. But anyway, if you want to do that, you put on your indexer. So there you go. That's something that somebody somewhere probably needs. I actually have a set of these somewhere. These are hackle guards. I can't for the life of me tell you why I ever bought them. You know, when I bought these, I had already tied Catskill flies for probably 30 years or so. Not like I couldn't tie a Catskill fly. The whole point of this thing is you put it over the eye of the hook and it exposes the eye so you can make your whip finish cleanly, I guess. I honestly don't know what the point of these are. I do have a set somewhere. I think they're in the closet here in my tying room. And if you think this little corner of the room with my fly organizer and the pile of crap on it is bad, you don't ever want to see my closet. That'll be the subject of a whole nother video, or I don't know, maybe 10 videos. Here are a couple of items that clip on the stem of your vise. The white little tray thing Hans Velleman gave me. And I did use it for a while, but I found that, I tend to be fairly clumsy, and whatever I had in there, I pretty much knocked off as I tied. And in any case, it just wasn't for me. And then there's it's a background plate that you can clip on your vise and then have a cool background to tie against, I guess is the idea. And I saw somebody using one of these at a show. Of course, had to have one. And I think I used it once. The reality is I don't like anything that clips on my vise, not magnifiers, not lights. That thing that you get when you buy the vise, I think it's a bobbin holder or something that sticks out the front of the vise. I took that thing off the first day. This is some of Bill Bailey's wax. When he was developing his wax, he would periodically send me stuff to try out and get my opinion and feedback, etc. And I've got lots of his wax. There's cobbler's wax here. He's got some white wax and some, I don't know what the other stuff is there. And it was all great, but I just don't use enough wax. I make my own wax now, and it's going down the basement. Here's some pieces of brass that I was making wing burners for a while, which is remarkable considering that I don't ever fish flies that have burned wings. So that made no sense. Anyway, I do use wing burners to make subs for full dress fly like chatterer, etc. And I think there's some brass tubing here that I was cutting and using to mount flies in frames. Something that I really don't do much anymore either. Framing flies is a complete pain and not something I enjoy doing. Speaking of wing burners, here's a bunch that I bought, and some that I made, and great number of wing burners. I just don't use wing burners. Don't know why I have all these, but I do. Here's a really nice wooden handle I found in that pile. I think I kept thinking that I would ultimately find the rest of whatever tool it was, and I never did, but I kept the handle kicking around. Here are a pile of scissors I took out of there. With the exception of the iris scissors on the left, lower left, I just bought those and I've already relegated them to the basement. They're total crap, as are the iris scissors next to them. Next to that, you got the yellow-handled loon scissors, which are just awful. Next to that, something I bought from Pakistan. Don't ever buy anything from Pakistan. And then I've got a bunch of now defunct pairs of razor scissors. I buy a new pair every year, so this goes back 4 or 5 years. They're the best scissors I've used. I keep these with the idea that, well, maybe I'll figure out a great way to sharpen them, which I never do. I've tried to sharpen them, but I haven't had a tremendous amount of success. I've had some. And then there's a pair of cuticle cutters that I used once, cut the gut eye off a fly, and never used them again. Basement time. By the way, in case you think that these are the only old pairs of scissors I've ever had, I had a throwaway day about 10 years ago where I must have thrown away 30 pairs of scissors easy. Go through scissors like crazy. The only exception are the stainless steel ones. All right, here's a pile of miscellaneous tools I took out of there, some of which I use every now and again. The magnifier up at the very top of the screen, every once in a while I want to inspect something, I'll grab that. And so it is useful. Just below that on the left is an agate stone with the handle that I never, ever use. Don't know why I have that. Then we've got a heavy-duty bodkin that I do use. Marvin Nolte gave me this one. And the only thing I use it for is dragging seal that I've wound on a full dress fly, picking it out of there. You need something really heavy duty that you can really rip out the seal. So I'll use it for that. The next 4 tools were given to me by Dave Wood, Ravenna, Ohio. They're beautiful. Unfortunately, I don't use any of the 4 much anymore. I've never used the whip finish tool other than to do a demonstration of how to use a whip finish tool. The little brush next to it I don't use much anymore, and the 2 bodkins I rarely use. I use his very fine one. Right next to that is a deer hair comb that Chris Helms sent me at one point. And the idea is to you comb out the under fur on a patch of deer hair to get it out of there. I don't process my own deer hair, never have. I don't tie a ton of deer hair flies. I do tie some. But typically I just try to buy patches that don't have a lot of under fur. So I've kind of solved that problem without using the comb very much. Next to that is Farouk Ekich. Really cool automatic bobbin. It's like an automatic fly reel. It retrieves the thread automatically. It's ergonomically, the thing is really sweet. The only issue I've had with it is it seems to me that it works best with uni-thread. It was designed around uni-thread, so if I'm tying with uni-thread, I might use it. But to be honest, typically I wind up not doing that. So it'll probably head for the basement as well. Next to that is a Mattarelli bobbin that's used for the small spools of Pearsall's gossamer thread. And the only time I ever use that thread is if I'm making, partridge in orange or something. So I hardly ever use it. Next to that, a pair of hackle pliers. It's a little too stiff for me that I don't use. Next to that, those electrical probes that this particular one has just gotten old and doesn't work very well anymore, and I don't use it. Starting at the bottom left, I've got a medicine dropper that I used to put acetone in Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails when it starts to get hard as nails. Right next to that is an old mustache comb back when I used to use mustache wax, which was I used that for about a week, and I've never used this comb since. It'll go in the trash. And there's a couple pairs of tweezers that are fairly worthless. A couple of crochet hooks next that I do use from time to time. Next to that, a dubbing twister that I do use from time to time. And then a bunch of pins in the pin cushion that went with the tool organizer my brother gave me. That will probably wind up in the basement along with the tool organizer. Okay, we're nearing the end. These are primarily chemicals, some of which I use once in a blue moon, most of which are dried up and history now and I'll throw out. I've got a lot of Dave's Flex Cement, which I make with goop, so I really don't need that. I've got a bunch of Sally Hansen's in various stages of dryness. I've got some old glue that's pretty much dried up. I've got some paint that I use to paint eyes on saltwater flies. There's some white lithium grease back there that I use to grease my my Barracuda vise every 10 years, whether it needs it or not. In the back, there are a couple of hook caddies that I'll keep up here that I use hooks out of occasionally. There's some perfectly good epoxy back there that I'll keep. There's a glue gun, a hot glue gun that will definitely go in the basement. I never use that. Ron Lucas uses hot glue to repair jungle cock nails, but it didn't work for me for whatever reason. Now we'll change gears and get a little more positive. These are tools that I use infrequently, but that I like very much. Starting with these hair stackers, a set of hair stackers that I got from Chris Helm. The one on the small one on the left is a little different make than the two on the right. It's an AK Best stacker, and I use that a lot and really like it. I seem to use these English hackle pliers all the time and never for winding hackle. And here's a hackle gauge that I never use while I'm tying a fly, but do use it routinely to sort feathers by size. This is a hair straightener I use to take the wrinkles out of quill feathers and also to set the twists in my faux gut. This is an old pair of side cuts that I use to cut primary feathers off of mallard wings. This next little group of tools I use are specialty tools that I use in tying full dress salmon flies. The first here is an agate stone that I use as a burnishing tool. This is a dental tool that I bought from Ron Lucas that's useful for all kinds of things. This is a 6-inch ruler that I use all the time. Here is a pair of iris scissors, very small, that I like a lot. Surprisingly enough, made in Pakistan. I know I was bad-mouthing Pakistan earlier. Scratch that. Velcro on a stick, always useful. I've saved the best for last. These are coming up are items made for me by Dick Shaw, a friend of mine in Dublin, Ohio. This particular item is a nice little dish. You can put hooks, you can put beads in it, and it's weighted so it doesn't move. It's gorgeous. Here is a glue caddy from Dick. Again, weighted so it won't tip over. Your glue won't tip over. I once upset an entire open bottle of glue at a show. That was embarrassing. It went everywhere. I have a number of these cork holder pedestals in different sizes from Dick. They're just so handy for sticking flies on as you're tying. After a while, you just don't even think about it. You just stick the flies on there. It's great. This dubbing brush with an inlaid jungle cock eye in the handle comes in its own exquisite box that Dick made. Dick never does anything halfway. I don't know what Dick calls this tool. I call it a dubbing ripper. This thing is a brute. The business end is made from a gun cleaning brush. With this tool, you can easily form gut eyes for full dress salmon flies. This is a rotary fly drying tool that Dick made from scratch, designed himself. It's fantastic. It also has a foam wheel with slits in it. And this really came in handy for me when I went on my first saltwater trip to Mexico. I tied a great number of flies for my friends and I on that trip, and this saved the day for me. And finally, this is a very special storage box that Dick made for me and gave to me on my 70th birthday. It perfectly holds a great number of the little storage boxes that I like to keep my full dress salmon flies in. So now I can just take this box to a show and open it up, and people can sort through it and look at the flies and look at the box, which is utterly beautiful. Dick has even got a brass plate inside it with my name on it. And there are tools that you like and tools that you love, but this is a tool I'll always treasure.